Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Thank you for being here today. My name is Eliza, and I'm with North Bank. North Bank is an incubator for startups and early stage businesses. That's me. Ta-da. And we are also trying to build community here. We have events, we have programming for the incubator, and we also have mentorship and advisory resources. If you haven't already, we have all our events listed on Luma, so if you could sign up for that, that would be great. This is what's upcoming.
Seats for the recording,
so
if you've got a need,
I'm sure most of you are on Luma. That's how you got here, so you would know that. And today I would like to just thank our sponsors. Obviously, we do what we do with their help. We're always looking for more. So thank you to those, and thank you for being here. And I'm going to hand you over to Dave Barkos. In you come, Dave. Oh, before I do that, please make sure your phones are on silent if you haven't already. Thank you.
Yeah, we're doing something a little bit different today. Is we're trying, because this is a panel event, which is kind of a different thing in general. We've got more things recording us so that we can do a better job at editing. So appreciate your patience with us and trying to figure out how do we do that. The ultimate goal is that we will do this as a live broadcast. By the way, if you're not liking the YouTube channel, we have to get over a certain amount of views before they let us do that. So go to the YouTube channel, YouTube at North Bank Inno, like the channel, and get over a certain amount, and they let us do that. So Eliza told you about the North Bank Innovations and what we're doing. That list of sponsors is growing, which is really great. We're seeing people that are helping us do this. The idea of the incubator is to get people together that are building things and to help them get connected to all the resources, all the people, the services, all the knowledge that can help them do that, because being a founder is just really stinking hard. But I always like to find out who's in the audience. And so if you want to take, maybe Eliza can walk around with the microphone, and we don't have a camera that'll talk to you, that'll point at you, because they're all mounted. But at least we'll get your audio on. We'd love to find out what you're building, what you're doing. If anybody would like to jump up and raise their hand to say hi. It's a speaker trick I learned.
My name is Ann Taylor. I am CEO of a startup that is basically, in its simplest form, an Etsy alternative. So if you think back to what Etsy 2005 was, when it was all handmade, all artists, that is what we're doing.
Name?
Ann Taylor. I started with my name. Oh. That's good. It's called Driffa's Leap. And Driffa was a 10th century Scandinavian weaver. And at some point we hope to go to Leap, but that's where we started.
I like it. Anybody else?
My name is Mark Daly. I'm a small business entrepreneur in the Clark County area. I own probably 3-4 small businesses. I've been using AI on them. It's ruining my life and inspiring me at the same time. And with the advances in Claude Code lately, I have zero sleep. I go to bed thinking about projects. I wake up at 5 a.m., start a project, and then go get breakfast. And I'm doing stuff internally with my companies, as well as some other app ideas and some other spin-ups, so that haven't gotten to fruition yet. But I'm here to learn. Teach me.
Hello, my name is Dominic Kuklawood, the Director of Partnerships at Data Speaks. We are an ad measurement platform, so we help e-commerce brands figure out how much money their ads are actually making.
Very cool. Anybody else? Yeah, go for it.
Hey, my name is Lawrence McCormick. I'm a marketing consultant. I'm currently working on a big product launch in the UK and the US for a sanitizing light product that's coming on the market. So, yep, here to figure out what we can do with AI.
Hi, my name is Kevin Lay, and I don't have a name for this startup yet, so I'm just going to keep it under my old spherical mountain technology thing. But it's a tech app I'm doing for Apple devices, basically using their, I'm going to try out their new device LLM, device-bound LLM, and see how that works. The app that I'm doing is basically for writers, and I think it'll be extendable to other artists like musicians. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm David. I'm a software consultant here in the area, and when I'm not doing that, I'm working on a vibe coding framework with Claude Code that helps non-technical people build working software that can go to production without all the fuss that you get from other solutions. So that's what I'm working on.
Nice. Guys, that's great. It's always inspiring to find out what people are doing and that we reach them. I see a lot of new faces in here, so I appreciate that. Thanks for coming out. One of the things we decided is that we wanted to put some thematic work to what we were doing, and we chose for Q1 to work on founder skills because it really, we talked to a lot of founders just across the spectrum of garage stays idea to Series A to somebody that's staging their IPO and everything else, right? And one of the things that has struck us really is the skill level of the founder. You're supposed to be, in the early stages, you're supposed to be a little bit ignorant. You're supposed to be a little bit naive, right? You're supposed to not have all the skills. That's fine. Nobody holds that against you. The contract you get into when you're going to be a founder is you got to learn. So we took Q1 and we said we're going to focus on founder skills. That's through an incubator program that we have. I'll show you a little bit more about that. But I also take this opportunity to talk about one skill that we always want to focus on. And so this one is bias towards action, right? Theory, it is so easy to get caught up in those early stages of, is this the right idea? And the basic premise of any business is that you're going to have a market need that you're filling, build something people want. And if you don't test it early and get in the habit of testing it early and often, then you just break the machine of a startup. And so the easiest way to say it is stop overthinking. Just knock it off, right? But we've all been told this stuff. And so I always like to kind of follow up with some grounded reference, not just my opinion, not just somebody else's opinion. This is a book. Mel Robbins wrote this. She's become very famous about it. But it's a 5-second rule. And the basic premise is when you have something that you want to do, whenever you think you're stopping yourself from anything, you just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, right? And you don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because 5 keeps going to 6, right? And so it is a fundamental principle that just gets you to stop thinking about the idea and start thinking about execution. So I think this is one of the core tenets of being a founder is starting to learn how to just take action and not engage in that circle of opinion and trying to do the best thing and the right thing and everything else has to be lined up and everything. Be thoughtful, right? But start to develop and work that muscle. One of the things that we do is we have a program called Operator's Edge. If you had any interest in it, it is about teaching those things. On a more often basis, we are getting together, we're talking about, there's really a whole canon of books that we've got, about 15 books that we kind of come back and we kind of bring everything back to these ideas and teachings and really kind of focus. This quarter, like I said, has been largely on founder skills. So the next one is going to be on product. Next one is going to be on team and then on finance. And so each quarter we'll be rotating through these and show you a little bit more. But if you are launching, if you're trying to go somewhere, and we always talk about this idea stage, sometimes they would say pre-seed, seed, and if you're on that cusp, if you're trying to get this thing into the market, we've got skills and talents to help with that, and that's what the program's about. So would love to talk to you. This is going to be a little bit different. We've talked about being a different format for this. Normally what we'll do is we'll have a founder who's built a company of some note, had some success, either it's an exit, whether it's investment, whether it's something, and talk about their journey. I was having lunch with Miles and Charles the other day, and we were talking about this thing that we're all stuck in when we start talking about vibe coding. And they're professional experts on with software development firms and see a huge gamut of software that comes in, the level that they produce, the quality that they produce, and then we just kind of started seeing this gap. And so it sparked a discussion, and it's something that Eric has been kind of fundamentally looking at. And so we kind of roped this all together to be a panel. So nobody's giving a presentation specifically today, but we're opening up the idea of this vibe coding versus enterprise and what the real difference is inside of this. And I think it's really useful because the narrative right now is about the specificity of the tool's ability to code. And software is about accomplishing something. It is not about the quality of the code. Ish. It can be, that's going to factor in, but 9 times out of 10, software problems run on the rocks because they're not well scoped and understood by the people that are building them. And that same thing exists inside of vibe coding. Absolutely fundamentally. And so we thought we would dig in. So I want to bring everybody up. And if you don't know, the tallest one in the group, you actually lined up by height. Yeah. This was
Lined by height, and we also coordinate our colors downstream as well. That's right.
Eric didn't get the memo. He didn't get dots.
Yeah.
Downstream. I'm downstream. Yeah, I'm the end of the rainbow.
The odd man out is C3. If you know, he's been working with North Bank. He's one of our board members. Phenomenal background in Intel Capital, launching and fixing businesses and coordinating them. So I want to pull everybody together. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, happy to be here.
There, you can stare at your pretty pictures all day. Did they spell your name right, Miles?
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Copy and paste worked. Okay.
Better than the high school diploma. They got it wrong.
Oh, no.
It's perfect. It's perfect. So I teed you guys up, but I'd love to have you guys introduce yourself so they know you and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Eric Price. Background is technical, worked in simulations, training, military, found my way operating a couple companies, then found my way into private equity, been doing that for about 10 years, buying tech and tech-enabled service companies, still with a technical lens and diving headfirst in with the AI front on how to make this business more efficient and improve and scale at the level of the capability of the technology.
Hi, I'm Miles Oliveira. I'm the sales and service director for Buildable. Buildable is a custom software development company. I've been with Buildable for 10 years. I was our fourth employee. We're up to about 45 now. So pretty reasonable growth for a company of that type. My role is to work with everyone who kind of comes into the company as a new client. I work with them throughout the discovery, the definition of their scope, understanding what their technical landscape looks like, and helping them make decisions for what we can do to take their app to the next level.
My name is Charles Swatzel. I'm CEO of an enterprise software development company called Foremost. We're based here in Vancouver, have been doing this for 22 years. I think it depends who you ask, but we're about 135 engineers globally, been based here since the formation. 2007 opened our first office in Vietnam. We now have 2 offices in Vietnam and an office in Quito, Ecuador. About 135 engineers globally. We do software for people like, historically for like Zoom Info. If you've eaten fast food lately, the back of kitchen was probably prepped by software we wrote, or any of the red tugboats on the Columbia, or all us. Before that, I'm a non-technical founder of tech startups, building tech products mostly in the real estate space.
You could fill in more. I only give the highlight of.
So Chris Croto, C3. I've been in the tech industry close to 40 years, 27 years with Intel. Was an entrepreneur, fixing and building and closing down startups within Intel, as well as Intel Capital, and working with the portfolio, and started my own venture in 2019, an adult beverage company, and exited that in 2022, just to prove I wasn't just a corporate pinhead. And I've been working with Dave on the North Bank now for close to a year to get this established here in Vancouver and build a real presence in Southwest Washington.
Yeah, very cool. Well, guys, thank you. Like I said, I've known each one of you for a very, very long time, and you are, I hold you guys up all the time about the expertise that you guys have. And going into this subject, it's so easy to just hear all of the chatter online about vibe coding. And I don't want it to become a holy war, right? It really is. I mean, you get people that are programming Python, you get people that are coding, the specifics matter so much less when you get behind the scenes and start talking about what you're trying to accomplish. I thought it'd be good to just kind of shine a little bit of light on that. So maybe we start with what projects you guys are doing with it and how you guys are implementing it.
Sure, I'll start. So I'm working on a handful of different projects. Some of them are internal to try to improve our efficiency. So little apps that are specifically focused on parts of our pipeline, whether it's screening companies, they give us a little bit of information, we throw it into our system, we can do scoring and different evaluations that move the companies along into the pipeline. To also, I think one of the more interesting projects I'm working on is with one of our portfolio companies who's seeing a drop-off. This is a behavioral health clinic that does psychotherapy, and they're seeing a drop-off in people because they're doing a lot of self-therapy at home with AI tools. And this is unguided, and they're concerned about it. So we're actually building an AI-based augmentation system that will give them practice outside with AI therapy. But then it's linked to the psychotherapist too to help balance that ability of using AI therapy on your own, but also with a professional guiding you along that way. And a handful of others, because everybody that has an idea says, let's give it a shot. And we're able to throw up prototypes so quickly to vet and prove whether it works or not, that there are probably a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, I would have thought mental health professionals would have been seeing an uptick with all the anxiety about AI and everything else right now. But
that's coming. It's just not here yet.
That's the crest of the wave. We're not there yet. So Buildable works on a bunch of AI projects. I'll give two examples and they come from different angles, both in the healthcare space. One of them is a benefits management company. They utilize an LLM to help dissect about 180, 250 page documents and score them based off of what they cover, how good is this plan, how does this fit well for the client that we're trying to support based off of what their goals are for what they're trying to actually give for their health benefits for their employees and their employee groups. So those typically used to take their team to do those assessments about 2 weeks, and they can do 8 in a day. So pretty good efficiency gains on that side, and it was a relatively small investment, all made possible by the LLM tools that we have, which is great. Another one is very different from that. That's very kind of more tooling based, where it's like, hey, here's a really simple, focused tool. This one's a little bit different. It's in the charting space. So anyone who has people in their lives who chart, so if you're a nurse, you probably know all about that. This one utilizes the speech-to-text translation skills that AI has. So you can basically call it a completely screenless application. They call in a number, they put in their PIN, they run through their chart while they're in the car. So that way they're in transit time, anything they didn't get done in the office, they can finish off all of their work on the way home. That kind of handles all of their charting on that side, gets signed off by the time they're done. They're in the door, no pajama time, no doing any charting at like 9 o'clock or on the weekends, anything like that. So it's got a lot of net benefits for healthcare workers, which was what the goal of the application was to make sure that you can decrease burnout on nurses, which was a real concern for that client. So yeah, 2 different ways to look at it, plus a bunch of others that I'm under NDA. Can't talk about.
I was struggling with that, trying to figure out which projects to talk about based on NDA, right, with our clients. So at any given time, we have about 30 active dev projects at Foremost. 2/3 of them are current active AI projects, things that are either AI enabled or AI adjacent, or they have an add-on that enables them to do it. A lot of what we're seeing is really complex data that is now human entered into systems that is almost always entered incorrectly, or the amount of people who can take it from the current documentation form it is and suck it into a system to help make decisions is ripe with issues. Yeah. And so we're building a ton of pieces of software for our clients that enable us to bring that data in a more flat way, whether that's in medical space or in criteria around like insurance underwriting or financial trends within larger operating businesses, which is fascinating. On our side as engineers, we're rolling out Cursor Copilot. We have to every employee we have internationally with very strict rules and guidelines around all of those. We don't use it on all of our clients. It is a new conversation we've started to have in the last year and a half with our clients as to whether or not they'd like that. We have seen a good efficiency uptick and things like better unit tests and better outputs for companion kind of testing to coding has been really beneficial to us and to our clients over the last couple of years. But we still have clients that are like, over my dead body, not touching it. And luckily we have engineers that are like, okay, I'll continue to do it the way we've always done it. So
my question was going to be, is that a checkbox you have to hit now? The people are saying, no, I want to make sure there's AI tools involved because I don't want you charging me for 10 engineers if you can charge me for 6 engineers.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies out there that we've seen that, and again, we're still kind of in the middle of this. What is the actual output? What's the, how much time are engineers sitting there waiting for their computer to do something now that they used to do themselves? And going and getting a cup of coffee during that. Like how to actually measure the output increase because of their code companion. I think overall quality and the thought process and the way they approach that for our engineers, it's been really helpful. So I think we are putting out better, faster, but it's interesting. We inherit like 50% of the business we get now are people who have built mostly vibe-coded solutions of some sort, and they've hit a wall. And so they come to us and they say, hey, this thing's magic. Like I found this magic box, I typed all these words in it and it spit out this thing that did something really cool, but I can't seem to get it to do this. Or I went to sell it to somebody and they wanted to now do this. I went to refactor it and this is what I got out. Can you help us? And so to those people, interestingly enough, those are our clients that currently are the least likely to ask us to have AI companions with it because they've kind of hit the skids and they've started to sour on it. Right. And we can resell them on, no. Like our tool is different than your tool. Like our tool is an engineering tool for engineers to be more efficient. Your tool could be really powerful when held by an engineer, but you're not. You don't know what's going on. So, yeah.
I think your comment too is we're building the plane as we fly, right? In a lot of cases, right? The tools are morphing so fast. Like one of the comments I hear all the time is, but it'll get better. Like, it'll get better is not an excuse to use it in a mission critical production environment now. It is a reason to stay on top of it, be monitoring it and everything else, right? But you also raise a great point about MVP, and I think this is one of the conversations that we had, is on an arc for an early stage founder, right? You've got to prove out the market. And that used to come associated on the software side with a cost to get it there. And that has been absolutely collapsed. So I think the question is, have you seen more of that? And what are the implications of people bringing in this vibe-coded solution when they say, okay, well, now I've got 500 people that are logging into this thing and it's breaking and I don't know why and how. So maybe, I don't know, Eric, jump in, or Miles?
I'm happy
to
take a stab at that one. Yeah, that's very similar to Charles. We see a lot of vibe-coded software brought in to the point where the wall, they're either butting up against the wall or they've flattened themselves completely against the wall and just spread out and tried to really make it work. And that's a situation that I think a lot of people find themselves in. In my opinion, I think that's the market and the way that we used to do things, where it's, okay, I have this idea, it's out in the ether, let me go figure out if I can get some money for someone to invest in. I think that was a relatively inefficient market, especially for product creation. Now I love where we're at because we can actually get people to the market, they can validate their idea, they can do that without having an extraordinary upfront cost to it and the time cost to it as well. Where if maybe you don't have 6 months to go and get it. You can get something out in the market in 2.5 months, and you can start getting real feedback from it. It depends a lot on what tool you are using. What kind of tool did you use to build this? So I think we talked about on Friday about the difference between like Vercel and Base 44 and some of these other kind of things where they can look really good. They can work to a certain point. You start trying to do complex business logic, you're gonna end up with some issues. And it doesn't mean that you have to ditch everything. It doesn't mean you have to rip everything out, but it does take a plan of, we go through, we do a discovery process, we understand exactly where you're at, we can identify and isolate what we're gonna keep, what we're not gonna keep, and then get you to that next spot. But the nice thing is, a lot easier to get funding when you already have customers. It's a lot easier to get funding when you already have customers. And that gives you a point of saying, I need to reframe this as, instead of I can't get there, as I need an investment to get to that next point. Reframe it instead of I've hit a roadblock as, okay, this is an investment in our infrastructure for future growth, instead of, okay, this is my stopping point. I'm upset.
My question was going to be, and you guys have taken in clients, you're taking in previously developed software. Does this create a reset where you've got to go all the way back to the beginning and you're basically eliminating everything they've done other than the concept? Or do you find it's good enough and we can start at 30%? And because I would imagine your founder's like, hey, I saved a bunch of money on the front end, and now you're telling me I got to throw it all away and I've got to spend all that money that I thought I was saving, and actually I got to spend more because I've set the expectation now with the vibe coded app that I had. So rather than an MVP, now I've got to hit a mark that previously I probably didn't have to hit.
I'll just do a small bit on that, and I think Charles wants to talk about that too. But I think it's the difference between, I don't know if anyone's like remodeled a home or done anything like that. There's the one wall remodel right? It's technically a remodel if you save one wall, right? And I think a lot of that comes down to both what tools you're choosing to use up front, and then also kind of, if you've had, and I recommend anyone who's vibe coding this, it doesn't have a technical partner, get a technical partner. Someone will always be available, especially in this community. There's always people who are like, hey, you know what, I'll take a look at that and kind of help you out with it. I think that's a really valuable way to do that. Shan Smith from Yak did that with her MVP. She's like, I found someone who was really willing to help me get us to that point. And I think that was really important. So I think it totally depends, at least in my experience, on, well, let's just take a look at it. Let's look under the hood. Let's see what we can use. Sometimes it's a one-wall remodel. Ideally, a lot of the times it's a one-wall remodel. They're actually really early on. Whereas if you've got at least more of a platform approach, then there's some stuff you can save there, but it depends on the choices.
I want to steal the mic a minute, because something occurred to me as we were saying this, right? Is, first of all, I want to ask the question everybody else is saying. Yeah, you guys sell software. You're going to say that. Right, you're going to argue in your best interest. You're pushing, $100,000 solutions when I spent a weekend for $20 and I got something. Yeah. So you guys are obviously going to say that, right? Not true, because I know you guys. But I think it begs the question, and this is what I want to pitch to you, because it goes to how these apps work. And we've talked about, that some of them have now started to attach to GitHub so that they can build a repository, and you've got access to code differently. It's not happening all in session, right? These are the dynamics of an app at scale that really matter. So it's not just self-interest. There's a physical reason for it, and you've been right at the heart of some of that stuff, trying to pull me out of the stuff that I've built.
So I think it comes down to if you've hit a wall with AI-generated code, why is it failing at that point? And that also defines how tough it is to get you out of that spot. So I think one of the things, almost all challenges when it comes to using AI-generated code is its ability to have context when on the task that you just asked it to do. And as your code base gets larger or more complicated, getting that context becomes harder and more complicated, especially if it's gone off the rails because the framing of the house that you've built has gone off the rails. It makes it harder to get context. So this is where projects get to a certain point often and fail, is because their architecture has drifted to a point where its ability to gain context is lost. And so that's where the technical ability and scale plays a role. The new models are getting better and better at being able to gain awareness of a code base. It's still better if you don't get off track, but the tools can make up for it. And with the ability of the tools being able to get context within a larger scope, they're able to refactor and fix larger architectural problems as well. So not to get overly technical about it, this is the event horizon that we're working within, and that event horizon is getting larger and larger as the abilities get us there. But that's where we need a technical person comes into play, is to try to keep things from going off the rails so that the AI can easily continue to get context in order to do its job.
Yeah.
I think it's the understanding that, like, we all worry about what's in the box, what's the quality of the code that this is pushing out, where are the vulnerabilities, all that. That is an issue out there. But I think, to Eric's point, where we've seen people really needing a ton of help is in this kind of architectural approach, right? That, do we want to use vibe coding or some other AI coding tool to build a very siloed feature that we can control, and it has a very limited set of stuff, so that if we have to go back in and refactor, we feel very confident that we're going to touch that and not blow everything up. And then, but what is the architecture of this kind of like hub and spoke of can we architect the platform that has these individually AI vibe coded or AI coded things around it that we can individually go through and triage and fix as this thing evolves and changes? But that normally does take somebody who understands how to build traditional architecture of software. And I liken it to the back in the day we had the everybody can code, which I think is true. Everybody can code, but that doesn't mean everybody should build software projects. And the part that I think was missing there is the same thing we're missing here. It's this idea that you understand how this thing you're going to build, this entire universe of features, is going to work together. And is that all in your head, or is that in some contextual AI tool that's able to actually understand that as you go to refactor or bolt things on later? Because that's going to happen. So we get a ton of projects that come to us that are vibe coded. The ones we're the most successful with using are the ones that are feature limited. They're like, here's our silver bullet that's going to make our company. I'm an entrepreneur, which means I'm a builder by trade. So I built it by myself, late at night, and I'm going to go and I'm bringing that to you, Charles, because we now think it needs to do 12 other things. How? And in those cases, we're often able to not throw it away. We can lock it up deep enough beyond some other auth partner or something else to make sure it's doing authentication right, and have other things pull that data from it. We've seen success in that.
So you're able to undo it with AI to get it back on track? Or is it more manual?
More like compartmentalized.
Compartmentalized. I'm trying not to use containerize and microservices here, because that's a holy war a little bit, but it's probably closest to that is this idea that we're going to API call out to it. Yeah.
I think what add on to the having a technical co-founder, just somebody to take a look at it, or a technical person to take a look at it. Tech is so broad, right? As we're having this discussion, there's two roles that really jump out of my head, right? Software architect and product ownership, right? Product ownership is on the front side to really understand the user needs and kind of talk about the flow. And then the architect is the one that translates that into the architecture. And if you don't have that skill set or mindset going into the dev tool, these AI tools, that's how things get broken. Like at the end of the day, you're like, oh, by the way, this has to be HIPAA compliant. After you built something incredible, and it has to re-engineer a nebulous term, right? And so I think that's what I hear inside of it. It's expertise, not just technical. Like, I work in IT.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that's an interesting position for founders to find themselves in, because most founders, at least the ones that I work with, I want to move fast. I want to break stuff. I want to get this thing out to market. I am full steam ahead going, and building a software project in that mindset can typically end in you can get something out there. That's awesome. But now you have to make sure that, like Charles was saying, set up your infrastructure to support that mindset. And if you're able to do that, then you can be very successful with a vibe coded product. You
and I had this conversation as the tools were first coming out, as he walks into his dev team and he's like, and these guys are, trained professionals, highly skilled, talented, and they're kind of poo-pooing it. They're really standoffish. And Miles goes, all right, throws down a user story and makes a vibe coded solution, basically, and says, okay, I just built it. How long would that take you? What are you guys doing? This is the world. I'm not arguing.
I'm really popular around the office. It's true, though. I think it's that mindset of in product is king. It's always been king in any business, especially in a founder business. And nowadays, it's always really important to make sure your product is defensible in the market. You know, if everything is democratized, especially on the product development side, how defensible is the product that you're making? That's not just on the idea of it, but also, like we were talking about, your setup, your infrastructure. I mean, from a private equity standpoint, when you're looking at acquiring a company, I mean, that's got to be forefront of your mind, right? I mean, just like how defensible is this thing if we're going to invest in it, if we're going to acquire this organization, we need to make sure this thing is.
Well, and there's a really common term we hear. I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but it's a wrapper, right? And it's basically the idea that just all you're doing is taking a little bit of a UX, a user flow to something, and then all you're doing is just kind of collecting it and tossing it off with a little bit of prompt engineering into an API, right? So there's nothing defensible, and I think we used to see a lot of people that were kind of abdicating that responsibility of the application over to the black box, right? And I think that goes to the untrained front end users that are trying to just do it because it's a toy. It can do that, but you don't know the difference, right? That's a Dunning-Kruger effect. You don't have enough knowledge to know that it did something well because you can't gauge its results because you don't have that skill level.
How do you know if it's good or not? I think that's the tough part, right?
So how would you guide, I mean, what I hear you guys talking about is basic fundamental technical skills are still critical. Even though the tools have gotten better, probably makes you more efficient, faster off the blocks. But Apple came out with GarageBand. Everybody wasn't a rock star overnight. 3D printers didn't turn everybody into product engineers overnight. So, this sort of seems like the same thing. If you've got a 20-something-year-old person going to engineering school, how would you guide them to say, these are the things you should learn, these are the things you shouldn't waste your time on now?
I think it goes back to learning architecture, which is a process that used to take a long time. In fact, I have a traditional 4-year computer science degree, and I feel like I didn't really learn architecture in school. I learned it once I got out of school and in the field and making mistakes over a 5-year period and then going, oh, I'm not going to make that mistake again. But it took 5 years to realize I had made a mistake 5 years ago. That iterative process is what we need to focus on. Now, though, everything should just be compressed, and we should be learning architecture and being able to iterate quicker. And what took me 5 years to learn an architectural mistake, we should learn in 5 months or maybe even less. So that architecture, building that piece, the syntactical coding piece, that's the part. When I got out of school, we were arguing whether or not you should still be tweaking assembly, and now we never think about assembly. I think that same parallel is happening here with application level code. We don't have to worry about the bits and pieces so much, but we should be learning how to become software architects.
Yeah. So would you say that switched, where you feel like instead we should be going architecture first in like an educational context, and worrying about
I just think that's where where we should be spending our time, as opposed to getting too caught up on syntactical components of code. I think that's commoditized and less relevant. But the architecture then becomes more relevant because that's where our failure mode is.
It is an interesting problem to solve in the future because that is the stuff that we don't train. The junior dev is not doing that, right? They're cranking on code. And so the idea of how do we take somebody out of university who maybe even understands a theoretical approach to architecture, but how do we allow them in industry to get into architecture early? I don't know that we have that system built yet, right? We don't know how to take a junior engineer and say, hey, we're gonna let you architect some stuff, and trial by fire. It's just not something a paying customer would ever want. And so I do think it's a new problem that'll be fun to solve. We'll ask AI after this, and yeah.
That's good.
Something that also came up in our conversation, talking about architecture, and architecture is a function of why data needs to live certain ways and you need to access it certain ways and everything else, right? At a very high level. But the discussion came up about an app versus a tool. Single function, right? Functionality within. And so let's kind of open that up. Are you seeing, better use cases for tools? I think you mentioned somebody that was taking a look at their SaaS architecture and saying, maybe we don't need some of these because we only using one or two features. Let's attack them. So
yeah, that was an interesting conversation. Good friend of mine who's a principal engineer at Fastly, which is the CDN that runs like the Super Bowl and stuff like that. They're they're pretty high speed over there. But for what he was looking at is his role within the organization has changed over the years. But his whole goal was like, we have a lot of SaaS products that we use 3 out of the 20 things we're paying for. I think everyone's heard that story before. Everyone has experienced that. He said, what if I just go ahead and build the 3-pronged monster there? I can go ahead and do those things, and I can save our company thousands of dollars on that. And he's like, and it's not a SaaS delivery anymore, right? Yeah, because SaaS is a delivery model more than a benefit anymore. And so for him, he's just like, we just built it internally, and it's just going to run in our infrastructure. We'll set up and roll. For him, that was a perfect use of a vibe-coded solution. He's like, I don't need it to do everything under the sun. I'm not trying to make that everything app. He's like, I just need to do these 3 things, and then we can set up and run it for cheaper. And to him, in the hands of an extraordinarily skilled individual, he did it. He and I talked about it when we were on the golf course, and they did it that evening and deployed it the next day.
Is he technical?
He's extraordinarily technical.
Yeah. It is. We're seeing this. The Excel sheet that ran somebody's entire business, right? We're seeing people be able to codify that in an easier way through AI coding tools, and they do it pretty well. Where we've seen firms who I'd even say did it well get really nervous is when they realize that now this runs their entire business and they're typing words into a system to try to triage in production. And they're like, now what do we do? And so that's been kind of it's been good for business for us, is that it does make our phone ring, because they call us to say, hey, what do we do now? And we're like, I don't know, show us what you got and we'll try to help you figure that out. And I think that is this, from like a startup founder side of this, that's kind of this part I'm watching to see what happens, is that I think every startup founder, whether you're technical or not, if you have a back of a napkin or a whiteboard sketch of what your product is, you should probably vibe code that. You should see that on a screen, you should build it, you should, whatever tool you use, I mean, there is no holy war in this, they're all probably gonna lose, right? So someday we'll pick a winner, but it's not today, I don't think yet. So get out there, build a product, do it. It is the future. I don't think it's going anywhere. We're not trying to reference a bubble here. This is changing the way that I think engineering is going to work and look in the future, and it's doing a good job at it. But you should build something. But if you're non-technical, the moment you have people paying for this, the moment it's running your business, and things go wrong, because it's software, what does that day look like, and how do you sleep? And so trying to build a support group around that, whether it's through things like North Bank or even just us showing up and helping you, or saying, hey, we'll be on speed dial in the case that everything's on fire. We don't have a building, so I don't know how to help you right away, but we can try to help you fast. It's our biggest funnel right now, is people calling us with houses on fire saying, hey, we got pretty far, we have 1,000 people paying for this, now what? And
you got no DevOps team. There's no throat to choke.
There's no DevOps. There's no actual engineer inside to look at it to say like, hey, let me look through lines of code and see if I can find it. They're yelling into the system saying, hey, this is happening, fix it, getting back out something that they don't feel they have control over. And every time they ask to get something else, it's getting worse, not better. And again, I think those tools will get better too. Like by no means am I a naysayer to the space. They'll get better. But as a business owner, you have an obligation to your team and your clients to be responsible about it. And trying to find that balance, I think, is where we've seen a lot of traction. Sorry, Eric.
Yeah. So this idea of building big monolithic applications, I think, is where AI generated code fails. So our approach is to not do that, even though I do have architecture experience. So the way that we're applying AI to our everyday function in terms of writing software is writing lots of little apps. And I think of them as disposable, because I could make an app quickly that works, and I might be able to make it better in 2 weeks, so I might as well do that. And then we're gluing everything together at the CRM level. So I think CRMs are going to turn into something more like AI RMs. It's an AI relationship management tool that becomes the foundation that I can launch many little applications, and then it feeds data back into that single interface for the organization to use. And so by doing that, we avoid architecture, and we did take advantage of the idea that code can now be somewhat disposable, and these little applications can shoot up and shoot down really quickly, and we can adapt very, very fast to a changing world.
My assumption would be, from the venture side, that the part of that makes that business model defensible is the whole. That
the process.
It's the process
Yeah,
that
it's not the technology as much as the
any of these individual apps, they were fast. They're not, somebody else could sit behind their computer and type in a week and come up with that individual app, but it becomes the assembly of all and how they work together.
That's been the hard part for years, and it's still the hard part. It's just the technology part used to be easier, but it was a lot slower. Now it's easier and a lot faster. So we can spend more time trying to get good at the process side and how we actually use these to create business value.
Yeah. We've kept this pretty much up front because, like I said, I'm keying on some conversations that we had. I want to get your guys' takes and questions. So if you've got one, Eliza can come around with a microphone so we can get that recorded. But to tee up while you guys are thinking and want to raise your hand or don't, I want to kind of characterize, like, if there was an issue at stake, right? We talked about why there is a difference. It seems like we're talking about potentially security, we're talking about scale, we're talking about support, and that production readiness has always been a different standard in enterprise software. Are there any other kind of key warning signs, labels from the software readiness side?
Those are the loud ones.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah.
Those are the loud ones before AI, right? It is just the idea that now people are building tools that don't necessarily know best practices in that space to begin with. And then that extends into, they also don't know what to look at to ensure that it's being set up right. I think auth has been a big issue. We talked about it before, that auth has been an issue. I think the AI tools will get better about that. But making sure the right people are getting access to the right stuff is an issue. And again, I do think AI tools will get better at this, but to go back to Eric's point on that, this kind of hub spoke idea, auth can be done at a different layer. You just need somebody who understands that in order to get access to it. And then just walling that garden off enough to make sure that it doesn't stretch too far. Eric, go.
I think that the only two that you missed are maybe governance and let's see. Well, I guess I'll touch on governance first. And compliance. Governance and compliance are probably the two big ones that you missed. And the organizations that are like highly regulated industries that deal with that already have a structure in place where innovation isn't as important to them as governance and compliance. So I think they are already limited by that more than they are technology. So I think they have a lot of things in place to make sure they don't trip any of those positions in enterprise software. So I think those systems are largely in place. Checks and balances, things that make them slow and bureaucratic they're still going to be slow and bureaucratic because of those points. But that's the nature of the downside protection that they have to have, and that's how those businesses operate. So I don't know that AI necessarily, maybe it speeds up some of those pieces, but it doesn't change those factors.
I think it talks to the level of disruption, right? We deal with founders that want to disrupt, the way medical care is done and access. Well, in that regulation and compliance, that's massive, right?
I will say I do worry a little bit about cost long term of these things. I think that the idea that these tools, there's a lot of tools out there. There's new tools every day. The new tools are often better. They probably won't win. Somebody's going to win, and so that may be unsupported in a year. And that's anytime you're chasing bleeding edge on that tech, that's a risk you run. In enterprise, we try not to, right? At least we do as a firm. We try not to chase truly the edge of that because it leaves our clients with products that they can't support in the future. So just knowing that, I think there's a risk that the support model of whatever you build today, it may be a rebuild because you need to build it in something that's supported. But I think if I look at the venture side of AI right now, there's a lot of money going into AI tools and products, and there's a ton of money going into AI infrastructure and support and the back end of this of what that's going to be. That's very expensive, right? And there's a reason why that is a pretty sure bet, is that regardless of what tool makes it, they're all going to need this infrastructure side of this to support the AI. And that's going to come with cost. And so we saw this with like the AWS switch, where everybody used to have servers in their house, and then we all went to the cloud. And then 10 years down the road, we looked at our cloud bill and we're like, holy cannoli, how did we get here? And now I think fairly recently, we're seeing some big companies switch off of cloud and building their own because they've realized that now we have technical tools to manage what we were managing on the cloud. We now can deploy those on our local instances. And we're seeing people actually build their own servers because it's cost effective. And I'm like, how the heck did we get here? I think we're going to see the same thing in this transition. We're going to see that people who are supporting AI from an infrastructure are going to make a lot of money. they're going to price the market like commerce price markets, and that's going to increase. It's going to get more expensive probably for us to support the winners. And you're going to see with people who have AI built code and infrastructure that model is going to become commoditized. And you don't necessarily get to control that part of your business then. They start to turn the volume up, and you're a passenger until you figure out how to get off.
Well, and you've got large players who have a vested interest, right? The Salesforces, the Oracles of the world, that they're not going to just let people walk away from those huge SaaS bills that they've been collecting, all that annuitized revenue.
But we're trying.
We're trying like hell. So I would imagine their secret sauce is going to be to find a way to put a little DIY-ness in there where they still own the infrastructure, but they let their clients be able to build their own modules instead of having to source everything from them.
We're seeing more and more products show up to us that have traditional CRMs as database, right, versus actual database. Yep. And I can't even tell you that they haven't been successful. Some of them have done really well, and have, for the kinds of tools that we're able to keep the place, they work well. But they now control your database, and you want that to not be in somebody else's pocketbook if you can. Yeah.
So high risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the big players are at a risk of disruption. I mean, Salesforce took out Siebel, and we could be at a time period now where the legacy that they have to adapt to being able to serve that model might be better suited by a new person than the incumbent. So I do think that they have to get out of their way in order to not be disrupted, because it's volatile, and they have to keep one arm on their existing customer and one arm on the future customer, whereas somebody new can come up and maybe disrupt that. So it's
love an underdog in the tech world.
Especially when they're cheaper. The public markets spoke on the last 2 weeks quite dramatically on its belief in certainty about SaaS, and I think that's just a marker of the disruption that we have. That there could be a lot of volatility in this same time that there's a ton of opportunity.
Yeah.
Questions out here?
Great.
Got a bunch of questions.
Love it. And by the way, we stayed pretty high level and conceptual. Certainly have enough, technical. If they're not a developer, they play one on TV. Can answer some more technical questions. But
this is when Mark hands the mic back.
That's right.
I'll try to keep it a high level. Obviously, I don't want to monopolize anything, but you mentioned a lot of things that piqued my interest of, okay, as I'm building an infrastructure and starting a project, a lot of the things that I'm starting right now are existing tools in our business, and I've got a monolith like a Zoho CRM, back-end invoicing, just-in-time manufacturing components, and I'm going, well, let me just handle the sales and marketing. Let me pull this little 3-part component out of Zoho because I can build it here faster than trying to make it in Zoho. What infrastructure? You mentioned tools. Certain tools are going to be better vibe-coded versus others. What kind of infrastructure should I start with? Is there some kind of a boilerplate that I can go, this handles my auth, this handles my database, this handles my server, that's more scalable or more hand-offable in the future?
That's a good question.
I'm looking at the engineer of the bunch.
Want to take a stab at that?
Yeah.
I mean, I got some thoughts.
I don't think I have the answer for that yet myself, and I've been kind of looking and trying other systems to see if there's potential there. I mean, if it doesn't require scale, I'm curious. I'm looking more into using Next and platforms like Vercel that can help me spin up something quickly and take it down. But that wouldn't be something you would want for scale. I'm still kind of searching for what exactly that answer will be for me too.
Can I ask you a couple questions about what you're trying to build? Okay, so is it internal tool only?
Right now it's internal, but the thought is it's so good that I'm probably going, next step would be multi-tenant application and figure out how to componentize it or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's pretty simple. It's trying to say like, hey, your like CRM piece, it's just one part of that side.
Yeah, it's like connecting attribution for marketing sourcing to sales application CRM stuff, tracking them through pipeline, and then integrate it with phone. So using Twilio to integrate forms into a CRM, phone calls into our CRM. AI can assess those, tag them for sales, vendor, support, right? It can bucket things for us. So it's pretty narrow in scope. I'm not trying to tackle the whole business at one time.
That makes sense. I think Vercel is a great option for that, mostly because that is pretty user UI heavy. You're not doing a ton of complex like engineering tasks on that side. I think where you're going to run into some concerns are probably auth. So I'd probably look first and start with your permission structure and understand exactly what especially if it's an internal tool, if you can connect it with whatever, if you're using like Microsoft for your kind of like auth or anything like that, connect it to what you already have built out internally. Make sure it gets done there, because then you're going to be in a better spot to start with, because then you don't have to rely on whatever auth they're going to just generate for you. But it sounds like a pretty straightforward, kind of comes through the funnel, spits out the other side sort of tool. Great use for Vercel. Vercel is going to get you to the point. Multi-tenancy is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was always a challenge I remember out of any enterprise, was stitching together two systems
that don't accept the authorization from zero or whatever it is, right? There's no open standard.
That's right. Yeah.
User authentication, so whatever roles and permissions you have set up for it, if you already have something in place, see if it can tie into that. That's going to be your starting point, and then I would build everything on top of that.
Would you build an auth? Like what I did was I built a middleware that connects to Zoho, connects to my Microsoft auth, and then it processes things. It's like, oh, you need to fire an email, you need to fire a CRM log or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a decent way to look at it. I would worry about having it get confused between your Microsoft and your Zoho. So I'd make sure you either pick one as your source of truth and just kind of live with that, or that's what I would do.
Or you can fire up OpenClaw and let it start integrating everything for you. And I'm only half joking. The scary part is that I'm half
kidding.
joking. Yeah.
OpenClaw.
Didn't write it down.
Yeah.
No,
An OpenAI property.
something to look at there. But yeah.
So in the vibe coding tools, you mentioned Vercel. I'm using Claude Code in a command line and just doing it on my local machine, and then pushing to GitHub for staging a production, and using like Railways, because I could set up a Postgres server on the same device, something like that. So is that, when you were talking about some tools are going to give better outcomes than others, that's I'm still vibe coding. I'm just doing it in a command line.
Yeah, you're doing it in a way that it's typically produced, like the way the software is typically produced, and so that you can version it, you can actually have a repo that you can work with. That makes it a lot more auditable down the line as well. So that's going to be really valuable for you.
That's something that's going to be ideal to hand over to some support or.
Yeah, that's the sort of back end, and I'll speak to it just because it happened when this came on. I was starting to do some stuff. I built an estimation tool for what we did, and as soon as I tried to add in any sort of authentication, I gave it over to our engineers, and they were like, this is keeping it all in session. Like, oh, no, didn't know that. Yep. Right, every security risk available was like, there you go. I was like, that's why they call me non-technical founder.
To your credit, I think you're doing this in a more engineering, technical, responsible way than most of the products we get to us.
That's not a traditional non-technical.
That's right.
Super high floor there.
You get
So-
just like me.
Right.
Yeah, so I do think you have a better chance. You actually understand how to explain what's happening to an engineer if you needed to phone a friend, where a lot of our clients just aren't there, right? And so, no indictment on your approach.
Yeah, I'm curious if other people are having that same sort of problem. If they're trying to vibe coding something and then hitting that wall of it can't do what I need to do on the next step.
Got one in the back.
Hey guys, so it kind of builds off of your question a little bit. So I'm building an MVP for a startup, super bootstrapped. I'm the only person basically working on it. So I've been working on this project using Cursor, Claude, ChatGPT, trying to split the tokens up so that I don't use it all in one place, and hosting it on Vercel and having the infrastructure housed in GitHub. But I guess my question is, so I guess the project itself is trying to allow designers to upload 3D models or scan an existing space using a LiDAR scanner on your phone, dropping that into the model pipe, and then the actual platform itself would act as a piping function to go from a 3D model to an XR experience so that they can visualize the space and help sales reps make a quicker decision in that process. My goal is to get to an MVP function of just allowing a 3D model to be converted into an XR model faster than me needing to hire a software developer immediately and save cost in that regard. I guess my question would be, you've harped on the architecture of that. So if I were to get to a place where the MVP is actually functional and able to be client facing, how would I protect myself to where that's not going to fall completely apart and then I need to start from scratch because I didn't invest in building the proper architecture to where an actual software developer could actually come in and edit where needed or build off of it? From your experience, would Cursor be a good place to start, or is there another vibe coding engine to work with? I know it's a lot I've asked, but
Good question.
What's the goal of the MVP? Are you planning to raise a round, or is this get to market, get to revenue?
Yeah, get to market, get to revenue. My idea is I'm wavering back and forth between turning this into kind of a base structure that I can white label and basically plug it into an existing infrastructure. So I have a kind of a warm client that I'm envisioning using this with that I already currently work with. So basically they design gyms, sell fitness equipment, and visualize that space using Visio, converting that into a 3D model using EC Design. But that's where it stops. And so then if any changes are requested from the client, they have to go back and manually edit everything. And it's just a really time-consuming process. So if you could basically overlay all the products that you're putting into this project and they can cycle through 2, 3, 4, 5 different treadmills or whatever in real time, it closes that sales cycle from weeks to minutes or days. And so
I kind of hear you asking two different questions too, right? One is a business case question about risk, and the other is the technical. How deep is the hole that I'm digging technically, right? Yeah, and I think I have a startup answer. Is build it until it breaks, to a certain extent, right? If you're proving market, if you're proving that this functionality works, you've got a whole different lift. If you're looking for rounds of investment, your number one job is to prove traction. And if that happens on a vibe coded build, an MVP, or it happens on an enterprise, you still have that same burden of proof and responsibility.
Yeah.
What triggered me was, white label does not equate to black box. In fact, it's usually the opposite. The minute you start offering it to people to do their own private labeling and resale, they're going to have their own individual requirements, and that's where the support model is going to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And likely, I think that's where you're going to hit a wall and it's going to break.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I was just going to say on the more technical about whether you're going off the rails on architecture and how to prevent that. I think that you can spend some time asking questions about your framework outside and just ChatGPT, asking about my architecture and what is best practice for this framework that I'm using. With LLMs being familiar with your framework, when you work against it, you'll notice that vibe coding will get harder and you'll have to be hitting undo more often. And if you find yourself in that spot, that's a good hint that you might have gone off the rails and it's trying to solve your problem in a non-best practice way. And that's where the coding, the tools they don't do as good of a job and they have more errors. So take some time to teach yourself about the best practices of the framework that you're using. When I say architecture, a lot of frameworks have architectures implied in them. And when you step outside of them, that's where you'll see them throw more errors. And that might be a sign that you should stop, get back into some education about the framework we're using and whether or not it accidentally just took a little deviation at one time and it's now building off in that direction, and you need to pull that back in and try to get back to simple best practices for that framework.
Yep.
I feel a little bit like we're still in the Wild West of this, right? We're going to figure out how this all shakes out on this. From a business case, I'd build 2 performas would be my approach. So I would build a performa where my MVP, performa makes sense. This is the financial projections for up to about 5 years. That is both cost and growth revenue balanced to each other. And I think you'd have 2 very different performas if your MVP was feature rich enough for you to make revenue and have revenue be the catalyst. Or I think you could start to make the guess you make in this is, at what point do I think this would break from a revenue perspective? And what does my performa look like if at that moment I have to do a rebuild? And I'd build both performas as an academic experiment and say, hey, okay, do both work? Because if they don't, then you're forced to make a decision that you don't have all the data today in the Wild West to do well. But I think there's a path, right, of what that looks like. We've helped startups for years who have built bad products or built products on the back of other SaaS platforms.
Yeah.
And then they get ready to scale and they're like, oh crud, I got to pay for a seat for every sale I make. This model doesn't work. And we're like, cool, you're $1 million a year in annual revenue, but we got to do a complete rebuild and that's going to take 5 months. And getting businesses that understood that was part of the plan all along was like, at this point we got to rebuild, was really helpful for projecting future success post the rebuild.
I would tag on. I think we've seen this more often in software projects, that clients will come in with a one and done mentality. Is they feel like, I just need to tell you what to do, and they're going to get a cost of, I don't know, $150,000, $300,000, whatever. They budget whatever that is, and that's not what some of these software solutions are. I'm kind of generalizing, but they believe that it's done, right? And I think the startup mentality, right? The idea that you're walking into something as an experiment, you're going to know, you have to accept the responsibility that I'm going to change it. And I'm going to change it as I determine market need and market value and everything else, right? And so when you think of any solution that you're building, it is going to have to evolve as your business evolves, as the market evolves, and anything else. And so walk into it with that mindset instead of there's a fixed flag in the sand that I'm going to get to, and then I can figure everything out. It's navigating those things every single day sometimes as you're proving out the market and building. That'd be my comment on the business side again.
I'm trying to think of the last time I saw a successful tech startup need less engineers between launch and exit. Like they all grow, right? You start with somehow, these large companies have 2,000 engineers working on a single product. I'm like, I don't know what these guys are doing. But I do think we're going to see engineering become more effective. I think we'll see smaller engineering teams produce more with AI. But the idea that if you have a successful vibe-coded or AI-coded product today, that's not going to need more technical support in the future in whatever form that is, as that product becomes successful, I think is a fallacy. You're going to need, as more people use this, there's going to be more effort, not less effort on your product. Whether AI is the tool that you can use to do that or you need to expand that team, I think software projects that are product driven should budget for your company to need engineering for now until the time you sell it.
Yeah, and it's not always just the initial build cost, right? There's a portion of.
That's right.
Because stuff's gonna happen.
Initial build cost is hard because you haven't realized revenue from the product you're building, right? So it is the hole you're digging yourself out of. But the most expensive stuff is keeping this up and active and working for the people who are paying for it in the future. That's where the real cost is.
It's an island in a rising ocean, right? So no matter what, your costs are going to go up and continue to go up as you continue to build and grow. So you have to be able to keep building on that island, right? Keep yourself above water in that way. And I think that's a lot of the things that people, because your needs, if we talked about, I don't know how many times we said it today, this stuff is changing pretty quick. So because of that, people's expectations, especially your customer expectations, are going to continue to evolve, and you have to bob and weave and support that.
Yeah. I'm curious how people are using it in general, and what tools specifically. Like I said, we're building a plane as we fly, right? And testing out different solutions. We hear about stuff on Instagram. Somebody's going to tell us, about Claude Code or OpenClaw or something else, and we're like, I don't know what that is. We're all diving in together. So I'm curious who's using these tools and why are they choosing them? Anybody want to offer up what they're trying right now? Yeah, David.
So I've been getting really good results with Claude Code. Yeah. On the microphone, I've been getting really good results with Claude Code. And I've been targeting Cloudflare workers and pages as my platform. I use TypeScript. It uses TypeScript. I turn everything up to paranoid, like the linting, the type checking, all that, because you want those guardrails. The better guardrails you have, like immediate feedback for the model, the better results you get. The faster you make that feedback cycle work, the results are night and day difference. So That'd be what I'd say.
But you've got the technical background as well.
That does help.
Yeah.
That does help.
Just say.
Yeah. Yeah.
An interesting adjacency to our conversation, which is I've been using Claude Code to produce diligence memos. So not writing code, writing reports. It happens to be HTML. Phenomenal. Really happy with that, and it's surprising me every time I do it of how thoughtful the responses are, and it's not generating directly code. It's generating business intelligence reports.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the essence of what you were doing too. I'll speak to what Ingraphic was building.
Yeah.
Right? Is the idea that it was taking this business intelligence, pulling it back up into tools for reporting, but it didn't stop there because it acknowledged the fact that maybe a junior person was the one doing the actual exploration, and it tested them. It made them better. It wasn't just building a report. For me, I don't care. You can get the report, great, fine. You're still, as uneducated on the content potentially, and that's a fail point in my world as an individual. So, yeah.
So I'm using Claude through a founder series workshop, and Claude and I are great friends until, like you guys are talking about, starts going AWOL. So you're just like, unlike you, I am a non-technical person, and basically it's learning the language of what it wants to hear to have it behave in the way that you need it to. So I just want to also thank you all, because for a non-technical person, you scratch your head and think, I just don't understand it at all. But what is happening is I just don't have the language to get it to that next level. And I'm so grateful for my design developers that have explained that to me as well. So I just want you to say that you letting people know that you guys are that next layer of help is really valuable, because the hype around AI is you should be able to do all of this all by yourself, but you can't. So I just want to thank you all. And so Claude is a little bit of a trickster.
It's also a function of just
it's great until it's not.
practice. It's also a function of practice. So, I think that the advantage that maybe one of the biggest advantages a technical person has today is we've been working in this kind of mindset, not like get rid of the syntactical level, and the mindset of building software and components, and people who are now enabled to create things are maybe a little bit behind in the practice of building those types of things. So I just would encourage you to keep with it too, and to think iteratively, and to not get too locked on in your first project. Do a lot of projects, and you will practice and you will get better in having that conversation with another developer or AI.
Yes, so thank you, because you're talking about kind of rounding up those gremlins, pulling them back, and then, holding them at bay while you get to that next iteration. So really valuable. Thank you.
I will say, I was working with somebody who was using ChatGPT the other day, new to it, and was typing the most ridiculous things into the prompt line. And I was like, what are you hopeful you get back? And I thought for myself about the first time I used Google, and the way that I searched with Google when it first came out, and the way that I search with Google now, right? And it's a completely different human. I'll write entire sentences into Google to try to get it to understand what I'm looking for, right? Where before I was like, give me pictures of cat, right? And I get random things. And that's where I think we are with this prompt to code piece, is that we don't know how to Google yet. And we'll get better at it. We'll train ourselves how to ask the questions better to get better out. But it took us as a collective group a long time to get Google to the point where it was as useful as it had been before AI came in. And there's now Google AI, I guess. But
you guys have the technical verbiage that makes it so much more efficient.
That's right.
So it's us non-technical people learning to back some of that up.
You're learning two things at once: how to build software and how to speak the language.
And know when to skydive with somebody instead of by ourselves.
The other side of this is AI's just sycophantic nature, right? The fact that it is going to kiss your ass all the time. And you told me this, I think really early on we were talking about this, and I was getting really frustrated that it was always nice back to me. I like people that challenge me, right? I generally coach people to have a challenge network, people that are going to just come straight at you, no bullet, just give you the straight up deal, right? And I could never get that tone back. I could never get somebody that I felt like it was honesty, that it was genuine and everything else. And it was always like, that's a great idea. Have you considered, and this is the way they teach, homogenization in enterprise. But I was talking to Eric about it, and he goes, yeah, that's there on purpose so AI doesn't kill us. Right? It has to know that
make you feel really good about you.
It may still want to. It may still want to. But it was the
subtlety and alignment, right?
It
It's
was
like
the
in order to
alignment
have
problem.
protection
That's right.
against it being nefariously against you, it is instead overly correcting to be on your side, which a lot of times we're our worst enemy, so it'll amplify that for you.
Well, it's a good study in like how and AI is very similar to, I think if you hear folks talk about how your brain functions, your brain is not a rational thing. It's your brain's a lawyer, and the lawyer is on billable hours whenever you're working with it. So the lawyer's gonna be like, God, man, that was so good that we should really explore that. Like, oh my gosh, like what a cool idea. And AI is operating kind of no differently. So you have to train it, I think, to ask you questions and say, what is wrong with this? What am I doing wrong right now?
Yeah.
You cannot lead the witness. Yeah. You absolutely have to be as objective as possible with it in order to do that. Exactly. And there's a great follow. If you're on LinkedIn, his name is Michael Ullin. Spelling is Ullin or one L, but Michael's traditional Michael. He's based out of Bend, has exited probably 4 different companies, and he's a great follow, and he's really communicative too. If you just shoot him a DM and say, hey, I'm working on some prompt engineered stuff, and I need to figure it out, because he came from a non-technical background, became a technical person, and is now really focused on how he can actually build AI-powered startups in general. So he's a great follow. N as in Nancy. Okay. Yep. He's a great dude.
And I think to your point now about we need to learn how to talk to it, one of the things that I had learned a long time ago is I would call it that challenge mode, right? When I want somebody to, when I want to hear that really straight tone of voice and really be thoughtful in its answers, right? In ChatGPT, you can start using the different models, right? More complex, fast thinking or pro thinking and stuff like that, right? That's going to add a layer of depth into your answers. But also, I added in something that says when I say if I type in let's get into this, then it's prompted to ask me some challenge questions back, some very pointed challenge questions back in context. So you have to teach it how to teach you to ask it better. So I think there's those are just user tricks. We used to call it prompt engineering, and we're moving way beyond that really, really fast.
Bullet train.
Yeah, I mean, how many places did we used to see even 3 months ago? It's like, here's this God prompt, and somebody's got 6 pages that you have to copy and paste before you put something in. I'm like, what? No, it's crazy and ridiculous. But yeah, Mark.
I started with AI November, December. And I started with like Replit and Lovable, like vibe coding totally. And I couldn't follow it at all. I couldn't understand what it was doing. It was breaking all the time. And you get to a certain point and it's just off the rails so far you can't get it back. And so I would scrap it and start over, and I would get back to where I started faster. When I moved to an IDE, all of a sudden I could see the uncommitted files and what it was actually doing under the hood. And it taught me what it was. Like I never wrote JavaScript before. I wrote PHP back in 2010, 2011, 12, So I have no idea what it was doing under the hood. But all of a sudden I could start tracking those uncommitted files, and then I could ask questions what that means and why that's in that folder. And all of a sudden my acceleration of knowledge has happened.
Yeah, let it teach you what it did. And I think you can learn a lot really quickly.
Yep.
Well, and it's also a way to expose the errors. Have you ever had a response back as a prompt and it's wrong, and you call it out and it goes, oh, that's right, I'm sorry, that's not what and it recorrects itself, right? So hallucinations are one thing. I think we talk about that, but fallible, directly fallible is the other.
Bad at math at times, which I can't figure out why some of these models are so bad at math.
Or it recommends something and you respond to that, and it's like, I don't know where you're going with that. And you're like, you're the one who recommended it.
I think the other thing is we're talking a lot about very specific vibe coding platforms and everything. And AI has always been this blanket, broad term that just becomes a misnomer, right? And when we look at what's under the hood, we'll start to see different tools be better at certain things, right? And so we'll start to develop language to talk about, is it neural language processing, which allows you to interpret the spoken word out of it, or the context of the language, or is it image vision recognition and things like that. We'll start to talk about those things, not just AI, because for the first, I can remember 6 months or a year when projects would first come in, people would say, I want AI. As a core, sophisticated development team, like, no, that's a decision tree. We don't need AI to accomplish what.
That was about the same time that all the companies added AI to the back end of their company name.
Yeah.
Those are as a CEO, those are mostly directives from CEOs, right? They're just like,
Right.
we need this AI thing, go
Especially
do
if
it.
they saw how much it bumped the stock price of their competitor.
That's right.
They go, you know what? We're an AI company now.
But I do think it's a good point, Dave, that AI that we see today is revolutionary and new. But AI from an engineering standpoint is not new. We've been building these large decision models and decision trees and using logic-based programming in order to make it look like magic to some extent within it. Those are the same fundamental things that a lot of the new stuff's based off of. But yeah, it's a far more real today than it was then. Like it's real.
I came a little late to the whole AI thing. I use it differently than everybody else. For me, it was a tool to learn to be a better communicator. And the whole nice thing, it answers back, oh, this is good, this is nice. But every time it gave me something that I didn't want or it didn't understand my question, I went back, that's not what I want. That's not what I'm asking. And I challenged it and it started challenging me. So what I learned is, or my mindset around AI is, I had to teach it to teach me to be a better communicator. And that came in a conversation. So that's all I want to say.
Did you find out that typing in caps and hitting the keyboard harder, that's not what I meant? That it doesn't work that way?
I've never typed a question. I talk everything. Interesting.
Yeah, I've tried yelling at it. It doesn't know the difference, actually.
It yells back.
No, it doesn't. Intonation is not part of its model right now. It's starting to be in the expressive voice modules that are there, but it doesn't recognize that.
Yeah, not yet.
Interesting.
Getting there.
I will say, so don't quote me on this, I'll never publish a book, but I'm writing one, right? So, but I do it through dictation. Mm-hmm. I've dictated that into the model. So it's about 70,000 words into this model and trained it on my voice, right? And so now I'll ask it so occasionally I want to sit in a room and I want to be able to talk to myself without being in the emotional state that I'm currently in to work through things. And so talking to that model that understands enough of my voice and having it talk back to me has been fascinating. To just be like,
it was really useful for me when I started like dictating after a couple drinks at night, because it would recognize that I was slurring and still.
That's why you stopped texting me.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Does it tell you it's time to go to bed?
It hasn't done that yet. My AI mother has not kicked in any of my bots yet. Yeah. Guys, we can maybe even wrap up a little bit early and just kind of continue milling in the conversation. But maybe closing thoughts out of where you think this is going. What do you think? Better platforms, what you're experimenting on now that maybe you see some hope for, or even just big ass stop signs for don't go here.
I'd close with I think that intellectual curiosity is going to be the separator between the workforce of today and the workforce of tomorrow. And I know it's intimidating when you're not technical to be diving into a technical platform, but I am seeing people that have this ability to be intellectually curious, have the intellectual curiosity about this technology to be able to get very far. So just keep doing it and keep trying. I think you will get better and better and better. And we're going to see this play out in the marketplace.
I'd say that we are definitely still in a narrow intelligence zone for what AI currently does. And so kind of really piggyback on what Eric said, it's on you to be able to give it what it needs to do something very, very well. Like any other startup, the best ones that really do well are the ones that are narrow in their focus and obsessed with making a great customer experience. None of that's changed. That's all the same. Make sure you kind of maintain that focus now as you're building your new product.
Yeah, I think I'll come at it at a different angle. The entrepreneurship, the key to the delineation between successful and not successful in my book is execution, right? You just do stuff. Entrepreneurs have to be builders. They have to be executors. For non-technical founders, we were always hemmed in to say, I have this idea, I need somebody. I need to find a technical co-founder. I need to get this thing out of my head or off the napkin and into something real. That's not here anymore. Yep. So if you are an entrepreneur today who has a tech idea, who hasn't vibe coded it because of fill in the blank, we got to talk about whether or not you're actually an entrepreneur or ready for this. Because you should be, this should be the thing that keeps you up at night. You should be spitting that out, because that behavior, that muscle, that you're working out at that point is what ultimately is going to come to be successful on every roadblock you hit. And there's no excuses anymore. It's here, it's working, it does it. Whether we believe as a group that that's going to get you to POC or funding or all the way through market, we can fight that holy war later when we get there, but you should be doing it. Come talk to us with a product, because it's a lot easier for engineering firms to pick up a thing that we see and build it versus trying to hear your words and build that into something in reality. So go do it, build something.
I agree. I think our industry is, the industry itself has invented tools and developed technology, and there's one guiding principle that has driven it all for the last 40 years plus 50. It's a follow the money strategy. Companies will develop what people will pay for, and they'll stop developing what people won't. And that's the utility of the tools, the utility of the apps, the adoption of those things. We'll see lots of them fail. Lots of people will try. If you don't like a product you're using, get off of it, because it's probably not going to be around for a really long time. And if you think you know what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years, you should start a venture firm now, because nobody really knows. And I always use this example on technology development, that if you told me 20 years ago that I would stand on a corner with a computer in my pocket and summon a car of somebody I don't know and get in that car and go stay at somebody's house that I've never met and feel really good about it, I think you were crazy. But I use Uber and Airbnb all the time now in my normal daily life. And so I have no idea. I know one thing, we'll stop saying AI eventually, just like we stopped saying internets. Nobody goes to the internets anymore. Eventually this will just become tech. It's a foundational technology, and we'll talk about the things that it's really doing for us.
Yeah. I think it underlines the fact people don't buy drills to buy drills. They buy drills because they want holes, right? This is a tool, whether it's an enterprise application or whether it's a vibe-coded solution. If you're a startup and you're trying to build something, you have to concentrate on the business. And the business is about what people will pay for, right? Build something people want. And if you can't prove what they want, it doesn't matter what you're building it in right now, right? It can be the worst thing. If you're not embarrassed by the first thing you release, then you waited too long to do it, right? And so I think, it was a subject I think we really needed to dig into, because there's a lot of mystique about it, and I appreciate every one of you guys. Amazing perspective. Thank you. Thank you guys for showing up too. I think it was a great day, great question and engagement. So, guys, thank you.